In this video, we are going to be determining whether lines are parallel or perpendicular. So to do this, first you need to remember that lines are parallel if they have the same slope. And we also need to know that lines are perpendicular if their slopes are opposite reciprocals. So remember, opposite reciprocals means one is a positive slope and one is a negative slope, and they are flips of each other. For example, if one of the slopes was 4/3, to find the reciprocal, you would flip it to get 3/4. And then obviously one would be positive, one would be negative. So we are going to go to our student journal, and we are going to do extra practice number 3 on page 89 for lesson 3.5. So I'm on page 89, and we have this picture here with a bunch of lines, and we have to determine which of the lines are parallel and which of the lines are perpendicular. To do that, we need to find some slopes. Okay. Now, there are two ways you can find slope. Some people prefer to count rise over run. And some people like to use the slope formula. So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'll show this using both strategies. So let's go ahead and start finding some slopes. So let's look at line P first. If I was going to use rise over run, I could pick any 2 points on this line. So here and here would work. And I would need to count the rise and the run to go from one point to the other. So the rise from this point to this point would be 1, 2, 3. And the run would be 1, 2, 3. And I counted up and right. So the slope is 3 over 3, which is equal to positive 1. Okay. I'll do a few more where I count the rise over run. Let's go ahead and find the slope of line R. So pick 2 points on line R, and I'm going to count the rise from this point to this point. So this time I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, and right 1, 2, 3, 4. So I counted down 3, so that's a negative rise, negative 3, and right 4. So the slope of line R is negative 3/4. I'll do this one more time. I'll go ahead and find the slope of line S. I'll use these 2 points right here. So the rise over run, the rise, I'm going to count down 1, 2, 3, and right 1, 2, 3. So I counted down 3 and right 3. Negative 3 over 3 is equal to negative 1. Now I'll show you how you can find the slope using the slope formula. So I'll go ahead and find the slope of line T. So if I'm looking at these 2 points that are on line T, I'm going to label them x1, y1, x2, y2. And I'm going to go ahead and use the slope formula. So I'm going to have y2 minus y1 in the top, negative 4 minus negative 1, and 0 minus negative 4 in the bottom. Remember, minus and negative, that's the same thing as adding. So negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3, and 0 plus 4 is 4. So the slope of line T is negative 3/4. Lastly, I'll go ahead and find the slope of line Q. I will use this point and this point. So this one's already labeled x2, y2. I'll go ahead and label this one x1, y1. So the slope y2 minus y1 is negative 4 minus negative 1 over y2 or x2 minus x1, sorry, 0 minus 3. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Negative 3 over negative 3 is equal to positive 1. All right, so we have the slopes of all 5 lines. Let's go ahead and find which lines are parallel to each other. So to do this, we're looking for lines that have the same slope. I'll start with line P. Line P has a slope of 1. The only other line that also has a slope of 1 is Q. So we know line P is parallel to line Q. If I'm looking at line R, it has a slope of negative 3/4. There is a line that also has a slope of negative 3/4. That is line T. So line R is parallel to line T. Line S is the only one that has a slope of negative 1, and no other line has a slope of negative 1. So we found our parallel lines. Now we're going to find our perpendicular lines. So this time we are looking for lines that have opposite reciprocal slopes. So one will be positive, one will be negative, and they will be flips of each other. So positive 1. Remember this, if you want to think of it like a fraction, you can either use 3/3, or remember this is equal to 1/1. So we need to find a slope that would be negative and a flip of that. So if I flip this around, that would get me 1/1 still. So a line that is perpendicular to line P would have a slope of negative 1. The line that has a slope of negative 1 is line S. So this tells me P is perpendicular to S. Notice that line Q also has a slope of 1, so that would make Q and S perpendicular as well. If I look at line R, if I were to find the opposite reciprocal, I would need a positive, and if I flip this, it'd be positive 4/3. There is no other line that has a slope of positive 4/3, so there are no lines perpendicular to line R or line T. So I have found which lines are perpendicular to each other.